So we start with very basic stuff that is getting introduced to the vendor and the product, right? It is important because not everybody is aware that F5 is the vendor. Okay, like it's the name of the company. Why F5? We will talk about that, or why certain things done with this number. Uh, but F5 is the vendor like Cisco, right? If you talk about Cisco router, right, 2800 series, right? In 28, if you are going through a particular model, right, then this is the company, the device, and the model, right? So similarly, you have, this is the vendor, this is the name of the product, big IP, okay? This is the name of the product. And LTM or local traffic manager, this is the module of that product. All these, no, the big IP will have multiple modules, and those modules will be covered. Those modules will be controlled and used by the customers with the help of licenses. So whichever license you buy from F5, those modules you will be able to use on the device. Now, why I am telling this, so much of basic things is in production, like in office environments, I have seen people getting confused between F5 and big IP and LTM, right? I have heard people discussing that, okay, we are replacing F5 with big IP, or replacing F5 with LTM, right? Or replacing LTM with F5, vice versa, right? So it's all the same thing, guys. When it comes to application load balancing, uh, you talk F5, you say big IP, you say LTM, right? It all refers to one same thing. So do not get confused. Okay. The next part, this is what I was talking about, different modules, right? So big IP basically has two major components. Okay? That is TMOS and the big IP administration. TMOS is basically for the traffic management, right? All of this modules that you're seeing here, they are responsible for traffic handling. And in this section, big IP administration, you have things for control plane, right? Or management plane rather. Not control plane, management plane, for managing stuff. Configuring the devices via GUI or TMSH. TMSH is basically traffic management shell, or TMOS shell, right? You call it. So this is basically the CLI of the device. Okay, CLI of the device, and the device itself, since it is a Linux-based device, it is, the underlying platform is Linux. So the CLI here refers to the underlying CLI. Okay, like taking the root access, or doing TCP dump and all those stuff from the basic Linux CLI. And the commands are also like as if you are running Ubuntu. Right, GUI, and then IAP. GUI is basically, a web UI. IAPS is again, you have what do you say, a cluster of softwares, right, for different purposes. And this is mainly for automation and then generating iRules and those stuff. So we will not be dealing with this, the automation part, the IAPS. Rest, in the device itself, like the company has created just one device, okay, big IP. It has different purposes, right? It can run different modules at the same time. It has LTM, DNS. DNS is, previously known as GTM, and Global Traffic Manager, sending your, DNS resolution to the nearest data center. For example, if you're, using Google, all your queries would go to Google India server. If you're in US or in Europe, the queries will be forwarded accordingly. So all of that is maintained by the Global Traffic Manager. And then you have other modules, ASM for the security management, right? You have APM, application control, right? AM, AFM. So all these, AFM is network firewall, right? So all these modules, each module is a different course, okay? So from all this, don't think that we are just covering one part and we are, leaving it incomplete or something like that. No, right? It is every module is a different course, okay? And along with this, yes, we would be looking at iRules, right? And we would be looking at how full proxy would work. And in some cases, you would have high performance hardware for SSL encryption, decryption, and compressions, right? So having said that, this is the overview of the device. So what we will be looking at is LTM from now onwards. Any questions until here? Okay, some of you may already know how the load balancers would work, but I would like to go from the basic, like the very basic.
Hello, Sukesh.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. LTM is like you said a product, right? Of F5, like Cisco having switches and firewalls, and then.
Right, Big IP is the product, and on Big IP, LTM is a module.
So, for example, like any switch, there is a Nexus switch connected to few like FEX. So
Right.
it's kind of module FEX, right? FEX module for that particular switch,
Right.
Nexus switch.
Right.
So under Big IP there is LTM, right? LTM GTM.
Right, not the exact comparison because the FEX becomes a child device of the main switch, right? So
Yes.
here there is nothing like that. Say for example, you have this web UI. Okay, you have opened Big IP here. So in this UI, you will see LTM options. Okay.
Okay.
Provided you have LTM license. Okay. And once you have, let's say, GTM license as well, then you start seeing GTM options.
Okay.
Okay. And when you purchase the firewall license, right, then you start seeing the firewall options in the same device.
In one same GUI of Big
Yes,
IP.
in the same device. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But obviously, the device, the hardware has to have the capability of handling all these tasks. So normally you don't club too many modules together in a single device, right? It's LTM along with firewall, or maybe the link load balancer, right? You don't club too many modules on the same device. If it is GTM, it would be dedicatedly GTM.
GTM only. So
Yeah.
basically, we can only club one module in one device, right?
It's not that we can or we cannot. It's all about the hardware resources. If you have enough hardware resources, the traffic is less, you can have 3 different modules running on the same device.
Okay.
Right? But if the traffic is more and more processing is required for LTM, you may not have enough resources to assign to GTM module, right? Because when you license the device, you get a pool of resources, okay, that you have this much RAM, you have this much CPU, right? And you have this much hard disk space. So how much of the available RAM you want to give to LTM, how much to GTM, and to other modules, right?
Okay.
So you would want to give bare minimum, right, on these resources. We will talk about it. Yeah, yeah, I'll
Okay.
show you in the GUI, then it will be very clear to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So Sukesh, uh,
Yes.
uh, uh, based on that, what you explained, right? So that means it's not a hardware module; it's a software, right? That
Yeah,
feature
yeah.
we are
It is
enabling on
controlled
the
by a
same
license.
box.
Yes, it is controlled by license.
Okay, okay, it's okay. The box is the same, only as per the license that feature will activate.
Perfect. Perfect.
Thanks.
And more newer products, you can say, are following this. For example, checkpoint firewalls, they already follow this, right?
Okay.
But that is on the, all the features, they are related to the firewall itself, not completely different devices. Here it is, a complete different device. It becomes based on the license.
Okay.
Okay, so talking specific to LTM now, local traffic manager. Since let's say we have clients, and let's take example of very well known application, that is Google, and we have millions of clients using Google. So do you think how many servers Google would have? Would it be just one huge server, right? Or will it be like hundreds and thousands of servers working together? What do you think? Just one server or multiple servers?
Multiple servers.
Multiple
Based,
servers.
Definitely
based,
Multiple
multiple
servers.
servers, right?
yeah, based on
So yeah, just imagine you have multiple servers here. Okay, just imagine multiple servers, and if we go by the network principle, each server would have its unique IP address. Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Yes. And if we go by the network principle again, the DNS lookup, right? Let's say you are in India, so the google.com would go to the India server, right? So let's say some of them could be the India servers, and some of them are in a different location. So my point is, how would my queries be segregated, or my queries be shared with, let's say, all these are in India. So how will be my queries going to different servers? There has to be someone managing that. Okay, this request goes to this server, the next one goes to the next one, right? And so on, so that we can do load balancing, right? So here comes the requirement, and the solution is adding a load balancer. Now, not just F5, if you add any application load balancer, that would work the same way, okay? So remember in the demo, we talked about, talking about the generic technology. So it is not just F5, guys, that works this way, right? It is any application load balancer that would work this way. So how would it work? All the clients, the DNS lookup, okay, would go to the public IP. That public IP is sitting here on the load balancer, right? You would call it a virtual server. So that public IP is sitting here on the F5, and all your queries, be it you have requested Gmail, or you did a Google search, or images, or whatever URL you are trying to go. So that URL, if that maps with the IP address that is here, all your queries will be landing on the load balancer. And the load balancer has simply two tasks to achieve. First is monitor the server status, right? If you have multiple servers in the backend, right? The load balancer will simply be, checking the servers with different mechanisms. Okay, and if a particular server is, let's say, down for maintenance, or it is, uh, abruptly down, or basically it is down, right, for any reason, so it would not be sending any query to that particular server. Okay, that means it is monitoring the server status and it is load balancing the traffic. How is it load balancing the traffic? On the basis of algorithms chosen. Guys, stay on mute if you don't have questions, okay? That will ensure a clean and clear recording. I've put you all on mute, so just unmute yourself when you have to talk. So yeah, two things: monitoring the status and load balancing the traffic. Any load balancer would do these two things, not just F5. The architecture that follows, like your request came all the way to the load balancer, then how would the load balancer would send it to different servers? So that makes a different destination altogether for the packet, right? Because the lookup happened on, let's say, 1.1.1, right? And 1.1 is sitting here on this device. So now this device has to have some capability to forward that, or to change that destination to wherever it needs to be forwarded to. So those algorithms come into play here, and that's where the architecture comes into play. So in order to forward these HTTP requests, right, you must have some sort of connectivity with the server already. Right, so for to achieve all of this, you need a full proxy architecture.
Sorry, Sukesh, I'm interrupting you.
Yes.
From here, can you go back to this page? So here we are just discussing like this way that load balancer having the activity to distribute the traffic. Suppose I am using search engine and trying to from India, I'm trying to reach at India server.
Mhm.
So here port server is there. Might be one is Europe country, another is Asia country, different Asia country. So one server is belong to the Indian server, but it might be possible that India having also Google different server, and that server having different subnet.
Right.
So I mean all the IPs, that all IP list is available in this big IP device.
Right.
Different
So
country.
basically, you divide it not by country wise. You divide it by application wise. Let's say let's look at the bigger picture. Your DNS queries, let's say they go to GTM, right, the Global Traffic Manager, and that navigates you to the Indian region. Okay, on the Indian region, what do you have is the LTM, and this LTM will have
can you
a
just
different
repeat, because
application. Let's say,
can you just repeat again? Your voice was stopped.
okay,
No, it's breaking, Sukesh.
okay. Is it any better?
Now it is better. I mean, 2 to 3 seconds was totally stopped. Nothing was
Okay.
carrying properly.
No problem. So the bigger picture is, the DNS queries, they go towards the DNS, and the DNS would navigate or give the mappings towards the LTM, right? LTM of your region, and your LTM would have different IP addresses based on your searches, right? One could be for images, one could be for emails, right? One could be for the cloud drive, right? And so on. So depending upon what you are trying to access in the Indian region, it will go to that particular IP address on the LTM, and that IP address will further, share it with the backend servers. So it is never a mix and match. the region is segregated here on the bigger cloud, right? With GTM, with DNS sending your queries towards a particular region.
Yeah, if I say in single statement, so now whenever user require, then just type the URL, suppose a website, and websites already hosted on IP address DNS like that, right?
Right, right,
And when whatever required, suppose that Google Drive, Gmail, or whatever, so then LTM will switch internally.
right, right. LTM
Yeah,
will
come on to
switch
the
internally and will forward your queries to the actual server.
come into this picture. Here you are saying that based on the application, LTM will, I mean, switch the traffic to the destination or destination server. So
Right.
suppose Gmail is the application. So in Gmail application, it's definitely having this. I mean, I believe that Gmail having several servers because for
Right.
redundancy purpose or for I mean distribution,
Right,
load
right.
distribution purpose. So under this Gmail application, they have different server, means that different servers having different network or different subnet. So now the, I mean, role of the big IP is how to distribute the traffic to that server so that load is equally distributed.
Right. So that's what I mentioned. It is doing two main tasks: monitoring the server status and load balancing the traffic. Right. So it is intelligent enough to understand which query would go to which server.
Okay, then I believe that when we will go to the GUI part, definitely we can see that under each application how many server IPs we can configure,
Yeah,
right?
that obviously, and we will cover that point theoretically as well. So it's upcoming. So just hold your question. I will explain it again graphically, so that you can build a picture.
Sure.
So Sukesh, this LTM and GTM is only mostly like balances the application traffic, right? Only application traffic, application based traffic.
Right, right.
Okay.
Okay. So we need to understand that all the load balancers, they follow full proxy architecture. Now, what does that mean? In your routers, let's say, or in your switches, who are packet based devices, what do they do is, if a router, let's take example of it, um, it has a routing table for the decision making, right? Any packet coming to it, it will check the destination IP, check for the route in the routing table, forward the packet, and then forget about it. Right? They're not building any type of connectivity or TCP connections with either the source or the destination. Right? But here, in case of load balancers, what the device is doing is it is creating a TCP connectivity, right? A three-way handshake on both sides. If you simply have to talk about the client and server architecture, one client, one server, or let's say 10 client, one server, then it is still good, right? You can build connectivity directly with the server. But again, as we spoke, if you have millions of users, multiple applications, and you want to load balance, then you put the device in between called the load balancer. Right? What will it do? By default, obviously, it is a default deny device. If you put it in the network, it is not going to allow the traffic to pass through it. Right? It is not a transparent device by default. So how would things go? So let's say you are going to abc.com, right? The DNS of abc.com will be mapped with, let's say, 1.1.1.1. So that is sitting here on the load balancer. So the client would form a three-way handshake TCP session with 1.1.1, right? So this is the client side connectivity. If you were to imagine a single session between client and server, simply divide it into two. This is the client side connectivity and this is the server side connectivity. So on the server side, what is happening? the load balancer is acting as a client and is requesting TCP connectivity towards the server. So here, the device is acting as an agent here, right? Like a middleman. It is acting as a server for the client, right? And it is acting as a client for the server. That makes it a full proxy device. Okay, and it can do some complicated tasks, right? Like modifying the application data, right? Why would you want to modify the application data, right? Shouldn't it be coming from the servers? Yes, definitely, but there will be certain requirements. For example, if you guys have noticed cookies, nowadays, most of the websites, if at all they are, searching websites or sales websites, they would, if you're going to them for the first time, a pop-up would come for accepting all the cookies, right? So that it's a cyber law basically to take the consent of the user if you are using cookies. So you must let the user know that you are using cookies as an application owner, right? So those things can be modified by the device itself, by the load balancer itself. Okay, we will speak more about it as we go into that topic. But anyway, just the gist of the capability of the load balancer. Okay. It can encrypt and decrypt the data. It can compress and decompress the connections, right? It can support different HTTP versions. Basically, your servers can be backward compatible. They could still be running an older version of HTTP, while the load balancer can run the updated one.
Sukesh, a quick question. All of this will only happen when we are offloading SSL on the F5, right?
Sorry, come again.
I mean, you have written this. I mean, from the client to the F5, it's encrypted, and from the client, from F5 to the server, it is unencrypted, right? Uncompressed, and all of these portions. So we are offloading on F5 only. Then all of this can happen, right?
Yeah, definitely.
If you don't, so my question is it possible to not offload on F5? I mean, it goes. I mean, the encrypted connection directly gets off. I mean, uncompressed on the server itself. I mean, F5 just forwards the traffic.
See, yeah, obviously that is possible, but then that kills the purpose of having a load balancer. We will talk about that when we do HTTPS virtual server. I'll do both examples with and without offloading. So we will see there how the behavior changes of the request going to the backend servers.
In that case, I have one more question. Does F5 have features for, I mean, checking the application itself? I mean, like, what do you call it? There is a WAF, like a WAF. If we have WAF applications of devices, right? So does F5 have the same capabilities itself?
No, it won't identify the application, like not in the LTM module. But yeah, the other modules, they can do that. The application management, AAM, I believe, ASM is the WAF module for F5.
Okay.
You have to have that module in place if you want that feature.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So how do we set it up? So basically here we're talking about, the device is a default deny device. And if you want to have your traffic load balanced, have your queries, HTTP queries load balanced, you have to have visibility to those queries, right? So how would that come is by splitting up the sessions. And if the connection is encrypted, that has to be decrypted. The device would look into it and then send it to the backend servers. Having said that, to achieve all that, we must license the device. So you must go through an initial big IP setup. where it goes through a systematic task of setting it up for the first time use. So you would simply access it through the management port, right? And this becomes kind of the only way, right? You access the GUI on the management port, you download the license and upload it to the device. We download it from obviously the f5.com. Then you provision. After you put the license, then you provision the resources. There are defaults and best practices that we can follow. So not such a huge task as it sounds, like you have to decide how much RAM and CPU to give and all that. No, it's fairly easy, right? You have basically different sections that if you want to give more resources, nominal resources, or you want to keep it aggressive for this particular module, so the device would dynamically manage that on its own. All right, then you can install the device certificate. And again, it's optional because it is for the device, not for the applications. Right? Normally, you would see the management coming as HTTPS with a cross, right? The management of devices, if you have worked on such devices. Right? So that is the device management certificate we are talking about here in the fourth step. So not mandatorily you want to have fully trust certificates. So you can use a self-signed one here. Then you talk about the platform properties here. Platform properties, basically you talk about the interface IP addresses, right? Which interface will be the internal, which one will be the external, right? Internal refers to the server side, okay? And the external interface refers to the client side or internet facing side. You have to configure VLANs on this. The VLAN concept is a little different on F5. I mean, the way they use the terms.
Hi, you are watching the recording from one of our live session. Hit like, share, and subscribe for more future updates.
Tagged VLANs and untagged VLANs, right? Because what we understand in networking basics is VLANs are always tagged, right? Unless you guys have worked on Juniper and more on Linux devices. So that's where you see tagged and untagged terms. So we'll talk about that. Then the optional things, NTP servers, DNS, and HA. So HA we will take towards end, right? NTP, if you have NTP server in your network, you simply define the name or the IP. Same goes for the DNS. So mainly until here, you have to define, you have to put the license, provision it, and give IP addresses to bare minimum 2 interfaces. Or you can give it to one also, but we will discuss the deployment modes towards the end of the course, okay? Because that's when you will understand what the device is doing, right? Normally people talk about the deployment modes in the initial classes, but I prefer to keep it till the end. Because at this moment, most of us, we don't know how the device is working, right? So let's understand the working first, and then we can use it in different topologies, in different ways. All right, a few fun facts about the management. Big IP device, the management IP address is always 192.168.1.245/24. And there's another device that they have, Viprion. It will have 246. So it is just for like FYI, we're not going to deal with Viprion. What is Viprion? Viprion is basically a chassis, okay? It is a chassis which can handle multiple big IPs, right?
A modular chassis, right?
Right. If imagine something like this, you have, this is Viprion, and you will have modules in it which can handle multiple big IPs, right? So as you can upgrade your device or downgrade your device, right? Depending upon which model of Viprion you choose, you can increase or decrease the modules that you're running with, and they all work as a as a single unit.
That will be log on by this 1.246.
Right. So this will basically be used where you have millions and billions of users coming in for your application. In load balancer world, everything depends on the application. The requirement changes, the use case changes, because every application is unique in its way. But if you look at the bigger picture, everything is HTTP, right? Since we are on the web, but every website would be different, every application would be different, the way it renders those pages would be different. So in the course we talk about the generic things that you can do, right? Not necessarily those things are true in your production environment. Okay, so don't get me wrong if things are not matching with your production scenarios. Okay, you may be using a different application which requires a particular setting, and that is why your device is set up in a particular way. All right, anyways, the fun fact here is the management IP address. Normally we have 1.1 or 0.1 or 254, right? Why a number from a random number from between the series? So that is because as per their documentation, F5 is an hexadecimal number, and if you convert it to the decimal numbers, it becomes 245. Right? So that is why the management address is 245. Right? And why I'm telling you this is because people ask this question in interviews. They may or may not be judging you on this question, but it is good to have answers, right? So it is the conversion from F5 to, sorry, from hexadecimal to the decimal numbers. Two sections to the device as we get into the CLI. You have to enter this credentials, right? Root and default, like the word default is the password, right? And if you're going to the configuration utility, now what is configuration utility? It's just a fancy name. It is web UI. Okay, but everywhere in the documentation, and if at all you're appearing for the exam, everywhere they will be referring it as configuration utility. So do not get confused. On there, you have admin as your credentials. You can change the management password through UI as well as through the CLI. So the CLI commands are again a little different from the conventional devices like the routers and switches, what we have seen. So on F5, the command line is, I would not say difficult, but it is different. You have to keep certain things in mind, and then you can sail through the entire CLI of the device. Right? I'll be telling you those things, and you can configure entire device, everything through the CLI itself. But since the GUI is so simple, so stable, surprisingly, all the engineers, they prefer doing through GUI. We would go to the CLI only for the troubleshooting purpose, or if you need some real-time stats, right? The real-time stats are, by the way, possible on GUI also. But let's say you need some configuration piece from the device. Let's say for the network, you need only the network configuration. You need only the routes and only the interface IP addresses. So you can extract that piece of configuration from the entire config. Right? If you need only the management related config, you could extract that from the CLI, right? And put it on the other device. So for such purpose, you would use CLI. Else GUI is self-sufficient. You can even do packet capture and all through the GUI itself. So let's talk about getting the device ready. You can do it in two ways. One is manual, of course, and the other is automatic. The difference is only about having the internet connectivity. Let's say this is your load balancer. If the load balancer has the direct connectivity with the license server on activate.f5.com, right? If the LTM has direct reachability, by direct reachability, I don't mean directly connected. I mean, it just has reachability, okay? In that case, you can go with automatic licensing, right? Where the device itself will go and communicate to the license server and get the licensing done and bring back the license, load itself, and take you to the next step, right? And that has to be through the okay, no, that can be done. Sorry, ignore. Now the manual part is when you don't plan to have outbound connectivity towards internet on this device. You may have inbound, but you don't want to have the device generating request and going out itself and bringing back the license. Mostly that is the case, right? You don't let the device go out. You do things manually. So if you're doing it manually, what do you need is you need a management PC here, which will then have access to internet and which will or which should be able to go to this website, bring back the license, and then access the device and then load onto it. Okay. Any confusion question here?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So this will take you to the next step of provisioning. Once the licensing is done, then comes to the provisioning the modules and the resources. So you can be running a dedicated hardware appliance for big IP, right? Or a chassis, a Viprion chassis where multiple big IPs are there. Or you could be running a virtual edition. Now this virtual edition could be on-prem or it could be on the cloud infrastructure. The procedure remains more or less the same. Okay, so what we are running is a virtual edition on-prem. We are not on the cloud. So this is what we will be using. And here, this is where you can choose the modules. And the good part is for trial, I think.
Can you just help us to visualize this virtual edition on-prem? How to install? Suppose I mean, server.
We will talk about it. We will talk about it. Okay, when we go towards the lab, that's when we will talk about it. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So you get, if I'm not wrong, last time I checked, it was 30 days trial or 45. I don't remember clearly. You get a trial license from F5, and the good part is you can try all these modules on the same device. Right? You don't have to download trial license for each one of them independently. Okay, at the time of downloading, you can mention that you want to try the device and these are the features that you want to try.
Yeah, this is one more product in market, A10, A10 I guess. F5 and A10, both are same or different?
Sorry, come again, please.
One more product in market, A10.
A10, yes.
Yeah, A10 and F5 personality is same or something is different?
No, it is different in terms of the way you configure it, the way you manage it. But ultimately, the objective is to achieve what? Is to achieve monitoring the backend servers and load balancing the traffic. Right? They both do it in the same way. It's just that the terms used are different. Right? And the A10 CLI is more like Cisco routers. So the CLI is simpler. And the GUI, it's buggy, to put it in one word, right? People don't prefer using GUI, right? Maybe the end user or end customer who is not aware of the devices at all and he's a non-technical person, he could be using the GUI. The GUI is not that great to put.
It's really funny, no? Is it really like that? I mean,
Yeah.
people start using GUI means don't have any knowledge about technical.
Not that way. We all are using big IP GUI only.
Like Palo Alto,
Right.
the entire thing over based on GUI only.
Right.
Sukesh,
It started actually. Give me a minute. So that's where the GUI trend started, that it becomes simpler. You don't have to
Yes.
remember syntax of the command and those things. Everything is in front of you. You can click and choose and decide whether you want to do it or not.
Yes. This NetScaler also, I mean, load balancer, right?
Right. That would also work exactly the same way, achieve the same task of monitoring the backend servers and load balancing the traffic. Just the terms would be different. The way
Right.
you configure it, the way the GUI would work will be different.
Right.
Okay, let's continue and let me know if I
Dropped. Sukesh, not possible.
yeah, I got my answer.
yeah, you got your answer.
I told you, na, yesterday you have tried because we observed very bad experience. Your broadband is better.
For the day. I will get it checked.
You are using GeoFiber, Sukesh?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm at
No. Your broadband is GeoFiber?
relatives' place. I'm saying I am not sure. I am at one of my relatives' place. Not sure what they're using.
Okay. Then you
I'll
have
have
to
to ask
give the
him.
reset to your ONU. That that device you have to give the reset.
Yeah, the concept is same, but this is not GeoFiber for sure.
Okay.
Nowadays, they are all giving you, optical fibers. घर पे device लगा के चले
But
जाओ.
actually, that local broadband user, they are just converting this from Ethernet, optical to Ethernet.
Right.
That's a I mean, packet loss and very chance of this errors and it will come.
Yes. I tried explaining it to my my broadband provider in Pune. In Pune also, I stay in a location where GeoFiber and Airtel Extreme, all these are not available.
Okay.
So they take it from Tata and Airtel and then distribute it further in the locality. So their devices are literally the bottleneck. I mean, they
Right.
could oversubscribe the bandwidth and oversubscribe the throughput of the device. So that's where this packet drop happens.
You can't do anything.
Right. So just let me know whenever I break, guys. I'll repeat. That's the best I can do right
Sure.
now. Okay. So after this is done, after provisioning, can you talk about the device certificate? Again, this is the device certificate. We are not talking about the application certificate here. After that is done, there's an important thing that you can do is you can archive the big IP system configuration, right? It's like having a backup or having a restore point. In Windows, we have restore points. Remember? I used to, take leverage of that feature very often when I was in school or in college. I would create different restore points, and I used to, fool around with my friends. File are gone, file are back, like that. So basically it takes you back in time. Whatever you created or configured at that moment, that will be saved. So they call it a UCS file. In short, they call it. right? And they are saved with .ucs extension. Three main portals of F5 that you can use while you are learning this or while you are working on the device, right? That is Ask F5. It is like Cisco support forum, right? Where the experts will answer your queries. You can simply put it there. Dev Central, it's more of a open thing where everybody can create articles, and you will use this mostly for iRules, and if you want to do something on the device which is unconventional or is a feature which is not available on the GUI, that's when you would want to come on the Dev Central and see how do you do it on F5. For example, F5 on the GUI does not have a capability of having scheduled backups, right? You have to run this UCS manually, okay? But through scripts, you can have the device run the UCS backup scheduled, right? You can have it scheduled weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, whatever suits you, right? So through script, you can do it. So those scripts will be available on Dev Central. Okay, so such use cases, if you have, go to Dev Central and you will not be disappointed. Then you have Big IP, iHealth. Not much of a use to us as network administrators. iHealth is basically a portal which talks about vulnerabilities in your device, right? It does a health check to your device. Okay, so the good part is you can use this with your private email as well, like Gmail and all would also work on this. You can create an account, take a backup of your device, upload on this iHealth portal, and analyze what it shows. Okay, so we'll do this. That brings us to the first lab. Whatever we just discussed, we have to do that practically, license the device, archive the configuration, right? All those tasks. So as I mentioned, I think let's keep it short today, right? And next week onwards, we can use full 2 hours of our session. Okay, or let me try one more time with the admin team. Just give me 1 minute. Let's decide that. Give me a moment, guys. Let me call them. Okay, I'll be on mute. Okay, so the email will be recent. I just spoke to the admin team for the timing, and I don't want to repeat everything, so I'll just stop here, right? So that we can have a few more people from the next session onwards, so that they don't miss the licensing part. So that seems to be a critical part, that how did we reach this step? So that has to be seen in practical.
Hello, Sukesh sir.
Yeah.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Sir, initially, sir, the beginning, you will share means all the how to set up the labs and connection. You will show.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can talk about that right now also for the lab setup and all. See, we are using this Evangy platform for lab setup. Okay, and if you guys need the images,
Yes, sir.
you let me know. I can.
Yeah, we need, sir, and sir, the server as well, and how to set up the connection means internally outgoing, like that. If someone is using this Evangy lab is on personal desktop or laptop, so how to do that?
Right. I think for Evangy specific, okay, there's a video on YouTube channel of Networking. You can watch that, right? I think in the last class or second last class, I decided to put it on the YouTube because in every class I had to repeat the Evangy setup. Okay, So just watch that video, and if you have any further queries after that, we
Okay.
can look at them live. Okay.
So this for LTM, right? The you have put it on
For
the.
for all lab setups. Let me tell you the basics. I'm sure you will understand. Where is this? See, this is the website evng.net. It's an emulator, right? And it comes in two flavors. Okay, one is professional or learning center, and the other is the free community version. Okay, so go for the free community version. It is absolutely free, no charges, nothing, right? Download the VM from any of these two links. If it is OVF, it will be a VM. Okay, OVF or OVA, it will be a virtual machine compressed, and you simply open it up in VMware Workstation or VMware Player on your desktop. If you download the ISO file, you will have to install the virtual machine on the VMware Workstation or VMware Player. So that is a longer task, you can say. But it gives you leverage of choosing a lot of things while you're creating a VM. But that again, you can do it on this one. So I would not recommend going with the ISO. Okay. So just go with the OVF. It will be a virtual machine downloaded, and simply open it up in the VMware Workstation and you're good to go.
So that's already has been set up. Means already. My question was that how to set up the LTM lab, which you just showed us now.
Right. So now you have to go for the images, right? So
Okay.
you must be not having F5 image or
F5 and servers,
right.
as per the last demo session.
Let's say I give you the link to the F5 image. So what will you do with it, right? So that is what I'm telling you. You have to go under how to load images. Okay, and these are the images EVE-NG would support, and somewhere here all the way down you will see F5 big IP. So the documentation, it could be confusing, it could be misleading. I personally prefer using WinSCP that gives you a GUI, right? Instead of doing the command line, go to the WinSCP and do a right click, create a folder with this name, right? And then whatever is happening here in the CLI, basically you can do drag and drop, right? So this is the file that you will get if I give you, right? Big IP 14 all, and this is the extension .qcow2. So it is unzipping it, and then you can skip the steps depending upon what file do you have. For example, here this is a zipped file, right? So you will have to unzip this, right? And we'll have to rename this. Every file that goes to EVE-NG must have a particular name. Okay. For example, in this case, they are renaming this file to this. And suppose, for example, the image that I will give you has this name only. So you don't have to do all this, right? Unzip and renaming it. All you have to do is put this particular file in this folder. That's it, right? So use WinSCP, create the folder. How do you decide what will be the folder, right? This is the name of the big IP, but there is again a list here for QEMU image naming. What should be the name of the image? Okay. So here starts with A10, ACS, ASAV. So somewhere here you will see F5. No, it was big IP.
Which version we intend to use, sir?
Sorry?
Which version we will use here in our classes?
I think in the lab, what I have is version 15, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
So this should be the name of the folder. You see, the folder name, the location will remain same, but the folder name has to start with big IP dash. After the dash, you can write anything like the version or anything that makes sense to you. You can do that. Then in that folder, in this particular folder, you have to put images with this name, right? Vertio A or Vertio B. And in some cases, you have to write hda.qcow and Vertio A.qcow. So basically, they have set up the platform in a certain way, and we just have to follow the naming. That's it.
Oh,
That's how
okay.
you upload the images.
Okay, after uploading, in the next class, you will show how to links between those devices.
Right.
Okay, so
It is simple. It is simple. I can show you right away. Right. For example, once you add your image, you will have them available here. They will be highlighted. I am using the paid version of EVE-NG. Right. So it is not different from community version. It has small features or enhancement. For example, this part, you would not get this in community edition, right? You will see all the list. You will not have an option to uncheck this and select only the ones which you have uploaded. Okay. So small enhancements basically. So whatever is grayed out, I don't have an image for that. Whatever has the name highlighted, those particular images are correctly named in their respective folder. They may be corrupted, they may be wrong images, but at least the names are correct. That's when it will get highlighted. Okay. For connectivity, simply take your cursor to the device. This orange network icon appears. Take it to the icon. It becomes bigger. Click, drag, and drop. Okay. Now it will ask you that which interface of big IP you want to connect. So in this case, only 1.3 is available, right? Rest all are occupied. So I use 1.3, and which interface of Windows you want to use, right? So none of the interfaces available, you cannot connect here. Right? This is like the unmanaged switch. If you connect it straight, it will get connected. This is now only asking you for the big IP port. On this, you can connect any number of cables. This is your like unmanaged switch. You cannot log into it, but it will do kind of a hub basically. And then you have the cloud connectivity. Cloud as in the external connectivity. These are, all this is, let's say, sitting in a in the hardware server. Okay, and this is my network card. Within this, I have a virtual machine which is running EVE-NG. And within EVE-NG, I have Windows, I have F5, I have Checkpoint, I have Palo Alto. Okay. So all this is within the EVE-NG VM. Now, if they want to communicate, let's say.
Hi, you are watching the recording from one of our live session. Hit like, share, and subscribe for more future updates.
My Windows PC, I need internet connectivity to go out on the license.f5.com. So I need a connectivity from this virtual machine to go. I should be able to go out through the network adapter. So to achieve this part, you have a different networks. In your community edition, basically, your options will start from here, from the management cloud, cloud 0 to cloud 9. It will not be management, simply cloud 0 to cloud 9. So if you use cloud 0, that means you are using first interface. Let me show you something. For some reason, I like to explain this virtualization part. I don't mind explaining it in every class, but that becomes a little monotonous for the recording. That's why we don't do it. So what I'm using here is the ESXi on which I have uploaded the VM. What you could be using is a VMware Workstation application, okay, on which you will have these VMs. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is, let's say I go to this particular Eve Professional Edition that I'm using or accessing right now. So I have what? I have 3 network adapters on this. So my first network adapter is cloud 0. Here. Okay, this is cloud 0, cloud 1, cloud 2, cloud 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. I'm just trying to tell you the sequence, how it is mapped. Okay.
Okay.
So inside, if you are mapping anything, where is that? So here, if you are mapping anything with cloud 0, and on the VM, that is network adapter 1, and that network adapter 1 is connected logically with the physical adapter, right? So that's how you will be able to go out. So you have to make sure that the adapter 1 of your VM, EVE-NG VM, is getting IP addresses from the Wi-Fi range at your home, because that's how you are going out on internet, right? So you have to ensure that the network adapter 1 is connected to the physical network. On VMware Workstation, if you keep the setting bridged, you will get 3 options: bridged, VMNet 1, NAT, or VMNet 8. Like these, you will get options.
Yeah.
So you can keep it bridged. Bridged works 90% of the times. If that doesn't work, you'll have to map things manually.
Hello.
Yes.
Actually.
Okay, so let me know, just give it a try. If you're stuck,
Okay.
I'll help you out.
Because actually we are not sure about that network we have given, like which one is go external, like Wi-Fi we have to use or some other network.
If your VMs, you plan them to go out on internet, you have to use the Wi-Fi and you have to set it up in a certain way. But if you are using it only for internal and your virtual machines, the big IP, the PC is not going out on internet, then there is no requirement of setting up those networks, internal, external. You can leave them as it is.
Okay, we'll try, sir. If stuck,
Hey, Sukesh.
Hello, Sukesh.
I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
the question regarding the lab. So what is the recommended RAM and the hard disk that you would assign?
Okay. If you are a single user and you plan to study, I would recommend having at least 16 GB of RAM.
Okay.
Right, at least 16 GB of RAM. In 8 GB also it would work, but you will have to be very frugal and very patient while working with the lab, because it will be very slow.
Okay, thanks.
So 16 GB should be good, and a quad core processor.
Hello, Sukesh.
Yeah, Yogesh, tell me.
Yeah, I just have a doubt. Like, this EVNG is similar to like a GNS3, right?
Yes.
So here at the right side, it's mentioned like lab.esxi, VMware ESXi again. So is it like for this EVNG setup, if we have to use, we have to install VMware as well, right?
Yeah, not ESXi, but yeah, you will require VMware Workstation or VMware Player.
Okay, so under that VMware pair, we can run this EVNG setup, right?
Yes, yes, that's correct.
Okay, and one thing I need to confirm, like, do we get recording of all the lectures of once the lectures has been
Yes,
done
yes. All the
attended?
lectures, they will be added to the portal, and you can access that anytime.
So how long we can access that?
I don't have an exact number. Don't quote me that you said 90 days and you stopped it in 89 days. So I don't have a number for that, but yeah, it is long enough for you to complete the recordings and be comfortable with that.
I think video access recording is for 1 year and
1
lab
year.
access for
1
9.
year for
And one thing, Sukesh, like they told lab access will be there for 1 year, but which lab access? Like which
Yeah,
kind
so
of lab
this is
access will be
the
there? Can you show us just an example? Like,
yeah, the same lab is there. It's just that a different server is there. So the same lab, EVNG only. Right? You will see this lab. It's just that you will not be able to edit this lab. Okay, if you need any editing or modification or any changes, you will have to contact me.
so means then what is like purpose of this lab? Like they told that you will able to create the lab, your own lab, and
Create
run.
lab. See, by creating the lab, I mean I have already created this lab. We will be using this topology for throughout our course. Okay,
Okay,
and
okay,
this topology is available to you for use. Right?
okay. By
With your credentials, you can start and stop the devices. You can configure them. You can do everything.
yeah, configure. We can configure them, right?
Right, right. Obviously,
Yeah,
by editing, I meant the topology.
initial
For
topology
example,
you say.
you want to add another PC here, for example, right? So
Uh,
that will require resources, right? So I'll ask you question that why do you want to add a PC? So that kind of editing I was referring to.
okay, okay. Okay, and I'm actually, to be frank, like I'm zero knowledge in F5, like BGP. So you get the preparation till from the lab setup till some scenarios as well as any interview
We will
questions.
go with very basic. I'll keep on telling you the interview questions. Like today, we covered one question, right? The management, not 245 wala.
Hmm.
So likewise, I'll be telling you that these things are important for interview.
Okay.
Another question I have is, so if I want to access this lab, so is there like a slot I have to book? Let's say I want to
No, there's no
practice.
slot as of right now. That is why we have kept it restricted. Earlier, what we did was gave 24/7 access, and people were misusing it. People were misusing it, so that is why we had to restrict it. So for still, you don't have to book a slot. You can simply access it anytime. But yeah, make sure that once you are done using your lab, make sure you stop the devices. Okay, because that will release the resources and so that anybody else could use. Okay, so if we can do it, the 24/7 access will continue. Else, then we will have to go on the slots.
Okay, is there a way that we can find out like if somebody else is using the lab during that time if I'm trying to access?
No, there's no way to for you to find out. I mean, I can find out, but for you, we have disabled that access. Since
Okay,
we are,
because
since we are giving it 24/7, there's no point in checking. You could use it. If you are unable to use it, give it some time, like half an hour or 45 minutes, and then try again. Right? Maybe it is under maintenance or something, right?
yeah, the reason I was saying is that let's say if I want to access the lab and somebody's already making some changes, so in that way it will be very hard to tell, like if I should be using or if the other person is using because the
No, no, no.
configuration will not be the same.
No, no, no. This topology, if I am accessing this topology, my configuration will be saved. And if you are accessing this topology, your configuration will be different. So each one of us accessing the same topology will have independent configuration.
Means
Okay.
independent memory you are saying, right?
Yes, you can say independent pods are getting created, and that's where all your data will be stored.
So
Whatever
means
you
for
are
every separate account, there will be this scenario will be same, but every
Yes.
single account, if me and for example any another student just accessing the same lab at the same time, doing some changes at the same time, so they both will be able to do that, right?
Definitely.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, so okay, sir, can we also create a WhatsApp group to ask the question?
Yeah, WhatsApp group will be created.
Okay,
Just
sir.
give it a week's time where all the registration gets finalized,
Okay, sir.
right? And that's when we can create a group.
So, sir, these Windows Server and S1, S2, all you will share next week, sir? These images will set up?
Right. I will share the images, but let me tell you one thing. These are not even the servers. These are Cisco routers. We are using them
Okay.
as web servers,
Okay, sir.
right? Because that saves resources. But yeah, I do have a full-fledged server as well, which we will use for HTTPS.
Okay.
But yes, I will share it.
Okay,
To
sir.
answer your question shortly.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. That's all, sir.
So I just want to confirm one thing. Actually, I'm seeing I am the only person from Pune. I think so, right? All are from
Yeah, I
Haryana, Punjab.
natively, like, I'm from Haryana, but it's been more than what 13 years now since I'm staying in Pune. Like right now I'm not in Pune, but yeah, I'm based in Pune since 13 years. So
Sukesh,
आधा किलोमीटर हो गया हूँ मैं. I can understand Marathi, although I cannot speak.
Okay.
तो थोड़ा broken conversation कर सकता हूँ मैं, but not full fledged.
नहीं ये मतलब ये अगर फॉर एग्जांपल अभी ये कोर्स हो जाता है, लेकिन प्लेसमेंट असिस्टेंस भी करते हैं, रेफरल भी करते हैं, तो मैंने उनको एक सवाल पूछा था कि आप मतलब कौन से एरिया में, मतलब मैं तो पुणे में रहता हूँ तो पुणे में ही ज्यादा करके सर्च करूँगा, तो वो बोले हाँ करते हैं रेफर, मतलब ऐसे तो बोल देते हैं लेकिन एक्चुअली कोई ज्यादा सपोर्ट नहीं करता है, इसलिए ऐसे नहीं.
देखो, I'll tell you honestly off record. ठीक है, let me pause the recording also.
जैसे फॉलो फर्स्ट पॉइंट जैसे
Okay.
कि हमने ट्रेनिंग लिया आपसे एंड काफ़ी चीज़ें समझ में आए और वर्किंग प्रोफेशनल भी हैं, और उसके साथ साथ जैसे स्टडी मटेरियल जो स्टडी गाइड आप दिए और कुछ डम क्वेश्चन, तो इसके बेसिस पर क्या सर्टिफिकेशन मिल जाएगा इजीली?
नहीं, इस पे सर्टिफिकेशन लाइक क्या मतलब मेरे से चाहिए क्या?
नहीं, जैसे ग्लोबल की बात कर रहा हूँ मैं.
हाँ, ग्लोबल सर्टिफिकेशन इट इज नॉट इजी टू गेट सर्टिफाइड ऑन F5. ओके.
नो A5 के नहीं सर, पालो अल्टो का बात कर रहा हूँ.
अच्छा, पैलो अल्टो का क्या? हाँ, पैलो अल्टो इज इजी. You can get certified. Just go through their certification guide. Everything comes from the guide, and you can clear. If you want dumps, you can reach out to the right people, right? They can give you dumps.
ओके सर, एक्चुअली करंटली हम प्रिपरेशन कर रहे हैं फॉर पालो अल्टो सर्टिफिकेशन की.
हाँ, sure.
सो आपका लेक्चर प्लस स्टडी गाइड प्लस डम क्वेश्चन.
Right.
सुकेश, आप ये भी देते हो क्या, पैलो अल्टो अगर लेक्चर किया तो उसमें क्या क्या मतलब स्टडी मटेरियल मिलता है?
The same
Videos.
lab guide, videos, and the study guide.
लैब गाइड वो पैलो अल्टो का या फिर आपका?
Palo Alto का.
ओके.
Sukesh, with this course, we can go for certification for F5.
Yes, you can go, definitely.
Okay. And the images you will share by next week, or we will provide you the email address. You will send the link for it.
Okay, I will have to move them to the cloud. I recently deleted them since I was running out of space. Let me upload them again. I'll upload Windows and yes,
F5.
Windows and F5. PC you will not need. PC you can use your base machine only.
Okay. Okay, so you need our email address for that to send the link, or you will upload in the course folder.
No, I will first upload it to my drive and then share it with you guys.